People complain about the situation, the different issues that are facing us, migration being one of the major ones, cost of housing, poverty, and so on. Nothing was ever perfect, but there was a time when um, things seemed to be a lot better than they are now. Trump refers to this in his phrase, make America great again. Not that it was ever great in absolute terms, but it was great in relative terms, meaning that there was hope and progress and so on. So something happened at some time. It's not like the solutions didn't seem to be there and that we weren't seemingly approaching them, because the West, at least, was improving and was building a civilization. Other nations were not doing this and are still not doing this. So there was a solution, and if we weren't implementing it perfectly, we were on its edges, on its periphery. There was some acknowledgement of the right way of doing things, and we were doing this, but something happened. And since we are now finding the third world, undeveloped world, um, acceptable or important to us, that we believe, at least our elites seem to believe, that they have something to teach us and something to add to our present society. Um, it seems that we have decided to follow the way of the failure, the way of the ones that couldn't find the solution. Meaning that whatever we had that was making things better has been abandoned to adopt something that these other countries have that have not served them very well. And I think when we look at it in the most simple of terms, it's the balance between the church and the state. Now, Canada, England, Australia, Europe and European countries, we were never really Christian. We were Laodiceans, for want of a better word, but we did pay lip service to the church, and we worked our solutions through the church. And at some point, this balance where the church had a priority in our life changed to one where the state became the priority. The fact that there is this tension between church and state is not good, and that we had the state administrating our affairs to some extent was never biblical. But we were primarily Christians, as so far as this culture is concerned. But we become statists, we become globalists, and Christianity has been relegated to a very minor supporting role, and this has been encouraged and pursued and so on by the left and by the state itself and by the migrants and by the rest of the world. And so our problems aren't problems in one sense, they're status solutions. Our problem, what we call problems, the migration, the inflation, the taxation and so on, these aren't problems. They're the solutions of the state. because the solutions of the state are what we see as, if we're Christians, as problems. But we've adopted their solutions, and this is why we have problems. And then we're trying to correct them through administrating more state solutions. But these are the problems. So we need to go back to solutions that are church-oriented, biblical, that are biblical. These aren't, or what we were doing wasn't entirely biblical, and it certainly wasn't Christian in the deepest sense of the word. And so long as we are still reliant on the state, we won't never get there. The church is the nation. There's the local church, which is the local organization, the local community, and even the nation. The broader church is the Christian community as a whole, but the church is a nation, and a nation is citizens who control the conditions of citizenship. If you don't control your borders, then you don't have citizens, because the border is not a physical thing, it's a line. That line is conceptual, and the one side of the line are the ones that aren't citizens, and the other side of the line is the ones who are citizens. That's your border. Well, who controls that border? It has to be the citizens. So citizens are people who control the conditions of citizenship, and that's the church. And that is the first step, and the necessary step. We have to control the border by controlling the conditions of citizenship. And until we do that, we're not going to get our country back, and we're not going to have a Christian nation. The Christian nation is Christians who are citizens controlling the borders, which is controlling the conditions of membership in the church, which is keeping the walls out of the church. And that's the basic, simple line between the solution and the problem. The solution is the church, which is a nation which has citizens who are people who control their borders, which is membership in the church. The rest is the state. It's that simple, folks. It really is.